Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Teresa. I'm the founder of Her Stories Untold, a global initiative dedicated to amplifying the powerful, often unseen stories of women around the globe. In association with Her Journey Empowerment Society, our work is rooted in one belief that stories have the power to shift perspectives, heal, and create change. Her Stories Untold begin with a simple but urgent question. How many powerful stories are never told? Not because they don't matter, but because people are taught to minimize their own experiences. So today we're here to continue to change that. This space is about visibility, voice, and truth, and more importantly, about reminding you that your story holds value. If something you hear today resonates with you, I invite you to explore and share your voice at www.herstoriesuntold.com. Before we dive into today's conversation, I want to acknowledge that the land on which I live and work is the traditional and unceded territory of the Quigley Nation and lies within the shared territories of Tsleil-Waututh, Katzie, Musqueam, Squamish, Kiki, and Stolo First Nations. Thank you, everybody, for joining us here live. How many women are praised for having it all together while quietly feeling disconnected from themselves? In this powerful episode of Her Stories Untold, Lena Fein opens up about emotional neglect, shame, survival, and the long journey back to self through a memoir, Shattering the Mirror. After decades of overachieving and disconnecting to survive, one moment at age 51 changed everything. A raw conversation about healing identity and what it means to finally come home to yourself. So today we're honored to be joined by Lena Fein, author of The Shattering of the Mirror. And you know, this all began with this whole decades of living in what looked like a successful life on the outside, and then now this journey, continuous journey of back to herself. Now, I just want to note here that her memoir is a powerful reflection on emotional neglect, identity, and what it takes to truly feel and live fully. Lena, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, in your memoir, you shared how you survived through disassociation and overachievement. Can you take us back to what survival mode looked like in your early life?
Yeah, part of my story begins really with the acknowledgement. I thought it was normal, but maybe not, that I remember photographically and emotionally um, when my little sister was born. She's 17 months older than me. I remember that day specifically from when I was 17 months old. So I have what allows me to really dig into my story of what happened when I was a childhood is to really have that memory recall. But the meaning I made up of it was different. And that's what's changed. Like my memories are still there, but oh, that's what I was doing from a more mature perspective. So I think I remember my very young childhood, the 2-year-old that was so excited about everything. Everything seemed to be
Mhm.
fun. And when I was 2.5, I have an older sister. She's 14 months older than me. I was happily playing blocks and with my sister. And we were sitting on the family room floor. I remember my mom was talking on the phone. And on this day, unlike any other day before, I didn't give her my block. I had done that all the other days, but I guess I was being too. And
Hmm.
I was being very stubborn and holding on to that block so tight that um, you know, she remembers it like throwing me like a football towards the window. She wanted that block so bad. And I remember viscerally to this day flying, feeling like I was falling, couldn't stop at the very end. It was just filled with terror. And the last second, my last memory with my eyes is grabbing on the drapes. My next
Wow.
memory was sitting on the floor on the rug, and my mom came at me with a towel and put the towel on my face. and proceeded to, she told me not to let go of the towel. And I just, in my head, was saying, don't let go of the towel, don't let go of the towel. It turned out that what happened was that I hit the window and fell through the glass and my nose was severed. Even though I had this photographic memory, my
Oh,
body's protection system protected me. I didn't know I felt no pain. I saw no blood,
so you're in
and
shock.
I was in shock. But I still have memory of my mom putting me in the car. Big sister climbs in the car. Then she starts driving off, slams on the brake, and I remember she ran back in the house to get the baby, my
Yeah.
little sister. So I remember this as I'm holding my own nose, not realizing I'm holding my nose. I'm just not letting go of the towel. And then she drops the kids off at a neighbor's, that my sister's, and I'll never forget. I'm lying on a table. I had no idea I was in a hospital. I just saw a light and a guy with a funny blue hat, and he looked at me like, oh, wow. I still remember his name. He introduced himself, and I remember how he looked. And um, then when the surgery was all over, obviously I don't remember that. My mother came and said I was so brave that they sewed the nose back on my face. Now, as a little kid, I'm like, oh, Daddy, when he came home, look it, I have a band-aid, my nose fell off. I didn't see that as trauma. I just, in a 2-year-old way, was like, oh, you know, I fell out a window and look, my nose is back on. I didn't realize it at the time, but that set up this thing about my body, maybe not having breath, feeling like I needed to outrun the grim reaper because everything's moving too fast. So I had this signature of terror in me that I didn't really know that I was carrying. And when I look back on it, all the things about me feeling like I didn't have my breath, like not fully going, but going like that stayed in my body. So that was the trauma that I think affected me physically and also emotionally, blocking pain out, blocking just that signature started at a very early age. And then, when I was hit grade school, the other trauma that really impacted me was my mother being very abusive and shaming, criticizing me for my curly hair, for me being uncoordinated. I didn't feel like that she was doing that with my sisters. I felt it was just directed at me. So I developed this thing about, oh, I'm not pretty enough. I'm, I can't do sports. And when I was in second grade, I loved to write, and I wrote in my first diary all about my boy crush in second grade. And when I came home from school and I hid the diary underneath my mattress, because that's what they did on Leave It to Beaver on TV or something like that. And I will never forget my mother when I came home from school that day, she was standing at the door with my diary
She
and
read your diary.
shamed me for how dare you write such thing. And she read my diary out loud, and I ran into my room crying, and I couldn't wait till my dad came home because I knew that when my dad came home, he'd tell my mom that she shouldn't have done that. Well, when he came home, my mother read the diary again, now in front of my three sisters.
Oh my God.
And I was mortified. That's when I remember, like at age 6 or 7, going to bed that night and giving like, no, oh, there's something really wrong with me. It's not safe to love. No one's going to love me. And I started, instead of being this happy little kid, this kid that was afraid of being shamed, don't share your story. You're going to be shamed.
Hmm.
And that started the pattern of, well, how will I get noticed if people aren't going to notice me because I have curly hair or I'm uncoordinated? They noticed me because, oh, I'm smart in school. So I hung on to overachieving and being smart in school. And, it felt good to get those A's or very goods, and I kept doing that, but in a way, what I was doing, and I didn't realize it as a young child that I was really running from running from the moment, afraid something bad is going to happen, and running from shame. And that set me up on a life of achieving and shutting down that true voice, the true heart. And that was, those two me key memories, I think, of falling, being pushed because I didn't give up something, and feeling bad that, I developed a pattern of somebody wants something, here, take it. You take my jacket, kind of
Like
that,
offering,
yeah,
kind of
overgiving in a way.
overgiving,
If,
right? Yeah.
if I don't give, I'm
Compensating.
going to be punished and somebody's going to be really hurt. So that, and then my mother shaming me so atrociously that I really kind of gave up on those parts of myself that were maybe feminine or gentle and loving. Um, yeah.
Thank you for sharing, Lena. And what I heard loud and clear was that because of the situation at home with mom and the relationship, right, and the environment, yeah, and at a very young age, you already experience this loss of trust, where a parent, your home was supposed to be a safe space, especially your own bedroom where you can, put your things away, right? Liberally at ease, about all your crushes and secret feelings, and without having any care that, any worry that somebody's going to read that diary. But and it's very unfortunate that trust was broken early on. So you're kind of operating in this you're not sure of what is going on, but you're just trying to survive. And then while doing that, it's really, as adults now, a defense mechanism, right? Protecting yourself. It's like instead of trusting freely without having to think about it, you're just in full on security protection mode kind of thing.
Yeah.
And I think I'm just trying to empathize, with what you went through, because as a child, there were if not both parents, maybe one parent is going to tell you, or some other parent figure, adult figure is going to say, no, 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 Lena's right, and like this is okay, or that is not okay. But nobody was really, in a
Yeah.
sense, watching out for you. So you're watching out for yourself constantly, navigating through that. And I see that of course, this resonates greatly around the globe because a lot of us, just women and men, all groups really living a life, but really disconnected from themselves, right? So we're kind of just coasting through, but I mean, of course, we're really clear in what we're doing and how we're waking up to go to work and, achieving, applying for jobs, and winning awards, right? Kind of thing, and always there to be available for other people, helping out, kind of thing. But really, at the same time, there's not a solid moment where one is exploring what that disconnection, to the self really means, right? So, um, now, globally, women are nearly twice as likely as men to experience depression, according to the World Health Organization. Yet many are still seen as high functioning, as you shared with your case. At what point did you begin to realize that the version of yourself you built to survive was no longer who you truly were?
I, I remember it viscerally. I was the A student, did really well in high tech, vice president, super achiever. And the day that changed everything, where it didn't like change overnight, but I had the first awareness that perhaps I was living with, everything, so much of me shut down, the emotional parts, is that my mother was diagnosed with lung cancer when I
How
was
old were you?
51. I
51,
was
okay.
51. My mother was 76, and she was diagnosed with lung cancer. And within a week and a half of her diagnosis, they tried doing the chemo and she didn't tolerate it. But anyway, within a week and a half of that diagnosis, she woke up really weak, not able to breathe. And my father called me. I rushed to their house. I helped my mother get dressed, which I had never done before. And I know she was really gentle and tender with me. it was really beautiful. It was like, whoa, I'm seeing my mother like undefended, um, really for the first time. And then when she was in the hospital, my dad and I took her to the hospital and she crashed in the waiting room. And whisked her away and they had intubated her. And when we got to see her, she was intubated, breathing tube. And I went and looked at her, and she looked at me like for the first time. I felt instead of seeing maybe these dark brown eyes, it was like they were glowing. And she was intubated, so she couldn't talk. But she, with her eyes, I felt like she was talking to me and saying, I felt like love. Whoa, that's my mom. And that moment was this, I felt my heart like just emotionally go poof, where I realized, oh, have I been missing something all along? And then, you know, they the doctors put my mom back to sleep, and I went home and looked at my own self in the mirror, and my own eyes actually looked like they were a different color, like lighter. And I thought, oh, what have I been missing? Now I didn't get like the awakening all at once, but I got the aha that perhaps I'm shut down. And then, my mom died a couple of days later. My sisters had a chance to be around her. But that started me on the path. And it was slow, like through dance, through reading out loud, through talking with people and looking more in their eyes, making more authentic contact. It started me on a journey of reclaiming those parts of myself that I didn't even know had shut down, you know? So that was the moment. And slowly after that, I left my job in high tech, started traveling around the world, looking in people's eyes everywhere in Cambodia, in Kenya, and being something different than being in my head. I was really making contact and, formed a nonprofit and really made all my relationships became deeper and developing new ones because I had the ability now to make real contact instead of kind of rushing, hi, how are you? Rushing that contact. That, it was like a 10-year journey to come fully, to just start erasing all those things that blocked my voice, that blocked me thinking I was worthy of being beautiful and being worthy of this naturally curly hair. Um, it it's shifted over time, and I can honestly say I'm 68 now. Like, wow, it's never too late at 68. I'm more authentic than I've ever been, even though sometimes I forget my words. You know, um, something in my heart is really been present, and I feel that's just really amazing for me.
Um, so, going back a little bit in this, I think what you just shared is that a lot of you has been shaped by trying to meet your mother's expectations, and that at the same time, very conflicting, to avoid her reactions. And then sometimes maybe wanting her reaction, right? Because it's also a form of validation. And as much as you don't want it, I'm not saying that that is always the case kind of thing, but there was a very emotional moment that you mentioned earlier, like when you first heard the news about your mom, being sick at the time, what went through? Like, were you in shock or like, did you,
I was
yeah.
kind of in shock. I mean, this is the prologue of my memoir, Shattering the Mirror,
Hmm.
which is a metaphor about a lot of things, shattering the window, shattering projections.
Yeah.
Um, I really realized that I had been not living from my true self of who I was. Um, so seeing differently, feeling differently, I was able to relate to my mom for those last couple of days before she died in a way that I had never maybe relate not only just my mom, but related to anyone. And so I saw the other thing I was doing, I think really was um, seeing my mother as the enemy and not having the compassion. I mean, she grew up during the Depression, and I, I feel like she probably had her own trauma, but maybe back then you didn't talk about it and you just acted out on it. So I had more forgiveness. I think not finally some forgiveness for my mother. And my
Absolutely.
dad, he was a really good dad, but he never took that's your mother, and you always respect your mother no matter what she does.
Mm.
She can be throwing dishes at us. It was mostly when he wasn't home, but I realized that my dad, in a way, was complicit by, you know, really not being there to witness what would be happening behind closed doors.
Yeah, and I think this hits home with, at the beginning of our talk where we talked about this disconnection with the self, right? It not only applies to women, but men and all groups. So perhaps he was also going through his childhood, his boyhood, growing up, becoming a man, becoming a husband, becoming a dad, right? And then this disconnection with mom, and then mom also in her own struggles, with her disconnection. And you're absolutely right because I think, in their time, in their era, they grew up in a different period of different ways of expression, kind of thing. Yeah, I was reading the book on Woman by Susan Sontag. She was talking about the very thing that we are still working on about a woman being able to express herself and or being perceived, we have to act a certain way kind of thing. We're still working on that. It hasn't changed much. Different forms, different levels, different capacities, certainly, and but it's still an ongoing thing, So while we have global data on trauma, there's still no conclusive, data set that measures emotional neglect or internal disconnection. And that's the reality, right? We know how many percentage for those of those that filled out the forms and was captured in the stats is experiencing depression, or who's happy and who's not, and kind of think longevity and whatnot, and health statuses and situations. But nobody knows exactly what the range of that emotional neglect or internal disconnection is, really globally speaking.
Yeah, because when you disconnect, you're disconnecting. So you're not really
That's
aware
right.
of, that I didn't have a name
Exactly.
for it. And I could
Exactly.
now being on the other side of this journey,
Yeah.
I feel that it's priceless. Like again, even though, like my back hurts, because I'm aging and I forget the words. I mean, and my heart, my emotional being is stronger than it's ever been as far as my voice when I speak. I feel the resonance of my voice. I'm not just rushing it. I feel that my voice is connected to my heart and my body is connected. I'm taking a walk and I've been using, and it feels really good, even though the world is more upside down than I've ever experienced. Like right now, we're in kind of
Yes.
crazy town. But I walk all the time around my block. I know to get a coffee here, some fruit there, and grocery stores. And I'm walking. I feel like I walk as a blessing because I know how to ground in my body and be present in the moment. And somebody could have told me that 20 years ago, but I would have probably faked it. Now I like really feel when I'm getting some coffee, I have the ability to look in somebody's eyes and say, even if it's like, "Ooh, I like that other brand when you make me my decaf. What was that again? Mocha Java. I like that better. Can we do that? And do
Mhm.
it in a fun way so they remember who I am, not making somebody wrong, just saying, "Ooh, I like that other one better."
Yeah.
I, I wouldn't have admitted it then, but I used to go through the world kind of protected, but also demanding. Oh my gosh, if they didn't do that right, I'd be kind of snarly. And I find that I don't have to do that anymore anywhere. That I can, even if there's things feel upside down, I can be right side up in the room and be what's needed here in a way that's not fake, but is what I call it blessing the moment instead of cursing
Mm.
the moment.
I I love that
I had to figure
example.
that out on
Yeah.
my own, you know?
Yeah.
I was
Yeah.
doing it wrong before.
It's a real true reality. I remember in my younger years and when I worked as a waitress at a Japanese restaurant, I remember there was a customer and she was very not nice, okay? That's the truth. She was very rude and condescending, but I realized maybe she was going through something in the time, but I was very like rebellious in the sense I didn't want her to drag me down. So I was like extra nice to her, kind of like the reverse
Ooh,
psychology as type of situation. And then at the end of dinner, she suddenly said, she looked me in the eye and she's like, you know what? I'm really sorry. I was really rude earlier. And I said, oh, that's okay. I hope your day gets better. I don't know. I didn't know what said
that's
else to say to her,
beautiful.
but and that's beautiful. And that resonates. It reminded me of that because of your example of sharing. And that's a true indication, I believe, your previous, reality where you said you were being snarly, that's because it's a form of ongoing emotional neglect for yourself. So you haven't had time to,
Because my
be
mom
connected.
was, yes, my mom was very snarly. From
Yeah.
the time like whoever was in the field would get snarled out with that behavior. So even though I didn't like it, I actually picked up on that myself, thinking it was normal behavior. And I hope to think I wasn't quite as bad as my mother was, that I had a little bit more evolving going on. But now I really, and it's not like I'm Pollyanna, like I feel like I'm really in the moment, n- reacting with kindness. It's so much better. I feel like I have weights off my shoulders. I don't have to apologize for anything. If you're really connected and being kind to someone and looking in their eyes, mostly everybody will
Yeah.
respond, and sometimes they don't. And you know, they might be having a bad day, and who knows? We could
It's
still be
it's very
kind.
true. It's very true, and this story that you've been sharing so far, it's again reminding us that all the pain that we experience in life is not visible. It's not like we're wearing this shirt
Yeah.
screensaver that says, "Hey, I'm in pain right now, so I kind of need help. I've been emotionally neglecting myself, so I feel really disconnected. So you be kind." Or, I'm sorry, I'm snarly. Like, a lot of things are going on, and it's usually after the fact that we come to a certain space, to have that reflection, right? So, and then and basically, it's really all the impact of the emotional neglect of, on our sense of self, right? Growing up, kind of thing, and carrying that through. So, yeah, it's
Yeah.
quite a
And I
journey.
think
Yeah.
it is possible. It is possible to be on the journey of going from where I was, which is
Hmm.
shut down, not using, I was maybe good in math and could write an essay, but not using my true words. And I think it is possible, once you're aware of it, to be on a path that doesn't necessarily click overnight, to be on that journey where you're like, oh, yeah, my back hurts because of my age, but I really can't be that wise woman on the hill. That maybe is moving slower, but has a bigger heart than I had when I was moving super fast. I
Yeah.
just think that, especially right now, always, people were always on some version, especially women getting stoned or burned at the stake. And whether that's not happening physically now, you can still feel that, pattern of that with women especially. And I just think it's so important. I'm so glad I didn't, that my mother dying, looking into her eyes, that I didn't miss that memo in this lifetime about how it feels to really be fully alive in your truth and have courage, and to be to learn how to be a blessing to the moment. I'm so I was so terrified of writing my book that I would be shamed. I mean, I thought, oh, I'm just going to hide it in my drawer. I'm just going to write. And then when I wrote it, the women were saying, could you do it in Audible? You know, it's hard for us to read. And so I did it in Audible. And
Yeah.
I was making all these baubles, and this guy in the sound booth was like my son, a 30 something man. And
Yeah.
I thought, oh my gosh, how am I going to read about my vagina or whatever's going on out loud?
I loved it.
But you
Yeah.
know what?
I was like, wow, this
I
woman
expected
getting
shame.
honest. Yeah.
He did the opposite of, he was always, no, take three, no problem. Oh, take four, like he was so amazing. And when we were all done, it took, many sessions. He gave me the biggest hug and said, your story is so brave, amazing. And then he proceeded to tell me, and guess what? You're the first one I'm telling. My wife is 10 weeks pregnant with our first child, like
Wow.
it was
Yeah.
that kind of a,
Celebratory news.
like I was afraid, but it ended up being this really amazing human
Joyful.
man in his 30s that was willing to hear about the trauma to my vagina or whatever you want to say. He held it like a gentleman with
Yeah.
such grace, it was amazing. And that was like, priceless, you know.
That's really, I know, I think it's really beautiful in the strength, And I want to touch on that, that moment while you spent, just few days with your mom before she passed away. I really think that was a beautiful closure of connection
Yeah.
with your mom, even though there wasn't much exchange of words of conversation. But, sometimes
Yeah.
the eyes can say way more
Yeah.
things than any words
I'm
can, really.
I'm glad you're reminding me that because she was before she was intubated, she sort of had those 4 days at home, and they invited me over for brunch, and I go, Mom, are you sure you have the energy that? And she was like made a whole spread. She still had her energy. And this was like, before 3 days before she died, she had a lot of energy, and she always had porcelain dolls, which I hated because she like put more attention on her dolls. But in the room that she had her dolls, which I would never go into, she showed me around all the pictures on the wall that were all the ancestors. That's my
Oh,
great
okay.
grand and where they came from.
Yeah.
And she really wanted me to know that. And I had never noticed them before. She had never, but maybe knowing that her death was coming, she was, no, no, like now that we're finished lunch, really, really come with me. I really want to show you this room. That was probably the longest interaction I had with my mom, like ever. And she was talking. So before she was intubated, she shared the history of her family, which I didn't know. And there was so much trauma there. There were, Jewish immigrants and Holocaust and immigrating, from pogroms. There was trauma there that I really wasn't aware of until 2 days before she died. And it's incredible.
I think it was incredible that you had that moment, to be with her, sharing that history of your family. And I think no matter how long those moments are, it's the most important thing is recognizing it. And going back to the, quickly, the point of not all pain is visible, but because of her eyes, she was able to genuinely finally show you that was her. And I think I'm not
Yeah,
trying to identify or label, but
no,
I can feel
totally.
your mother's, her trauma and pain that has left, has been left unspoken, that has been carried, she's been carrying all these years with her, right? So, and that's the same with my father, like he passed away in 2004, right? I didn't get to spend a lot of time with him, but on the, periods that we did spend our time together, I remember them very clearly, very deeply. And it's almost as if I can pull it back, from the drum, but like, hey, I reflect on this memory kind of thing. And despite them all kind of being short and sporadic and not consistent, I think they were just similar in the similar vein. They're just like those similar moments. And I think that's really important because them reflecting their pain and showing you a reflection of that, and then you getting in a part of it, and becoming a part of that
It's a
journey.
gift. Yeah.
Yes.
And especially when somebody is dying, I think maybe that was my mom's wake up, finding out she had stage 4 cancer, stage 4
Mm.
lung cancer. And, you know, um, sh she got awakened herself
Hmm.
and then passed it on to me. And I think, you know, there was a healing there that allowed me to move
Absolutely.
forward fully with my own
Absolutely.
life. Um, I, yeah, it's just amazing to have that transformation. And maybe I don't have to wait till my deathbed, that I could have however long's left and have that transmit, have more time with the people I love, even if they're strangers, to have that connecting time. And I will say that after my mom died, I became much more grounded with people and like having the knack, like I realized, oh, I was at the bedside of my father when he was dying 10 years later,
Hmm.
my mother. I became a hospice volunteer for a while because I felt like because of this journey I took, um, I was able to be really grounded with somebody that was on hospice and have that kind of vibratory transmission where know they're dying, but they really want to connect in their own way, even if they're not talking. And it's a really palpable space
Hmm.
and a place where healing, where people make amends on their deathbed because they're having their own version of awakening, maybe, not maybe.
And
I
closure
feel
too.
it's a powerful place.
Yeah. That is a truth. And I know I used to I did Reiki because I'm a Reiki master for pets that were dying. And they can't speak any human language, but everything is understood and comprehended, both ways. So I can really feel them also, them leaving, longing kind of thing, and it's just something that just being a human, this connection that we have globally together, right? So that everyone can experience, when you wake up, have that transformative moment and I guess the willingness to open up and to embrace and see, hey, I'm receiving, I am giving, I am being here for real, right? We say we're
Spot
here,
on.
but many people are disconnected. But take that time to really be here. Now, I want
Yeah.
to go back and talk about, this. I mean, you've arrived to a different phase in your life, of course,
Yeah.
but it's important to also acknowledge, I think, to talk about the cost of that strength, for getting here, right? So, women perform more than 75% of unpaid care work globally, according to United Nations Women, often while appearing strong and capable. And I mentioned this because that's the very situation that you went through, many of us went through, and I'm sure your mother went through, and especially when you were taking care of your mom the last few days and also being there for your father, right? Before,
Mhm.
during, and near to the up to the end of his days, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
So I know you mentioned from the outside, your life looked successful. Okay.
Yeah.
I know you mentioned in your book that you were moving to these big houses, you had the life, you were exploring, you could do at ease, at liberty what you wanted. But what was happening internally during those years that people couldn't see? Like, were you feeling lost inside,
Uh,
but
it's
trying to appear like you got it all together?
Yeah, yeah. But I didn't know I was lost inside because I was so used to performing and getting it all done that I'm like, oh, I'm a rock star because, oh, I got another A in school or I got another raise at work. Or I was able to buy
External
a big house.
validations.
It was validation. I didn't know I was doing it. I won't say I think I'm in general a kind person, but I was not, I was living based on getting that A and rushing. It wasn't the best I could describe it. And I don't know if you experienced this. I wasn't fully present. I was maybe present with the formulas in my head. I got to go from point A. I don't want to be late. I'm never late. I think what's changed in me is that I realized life is more than what's in the word in my head. It actually, if I'm really in the moment, it's like being in the moment with music. Oh, somebody's playing really singing. Well, there's a vibrational tone that they're matching that exists in the universe, or maybe somebody playing an instrument or whatever. And I feel that I was not sensitive enough to that vibrational resonance inside me. And the minute I started, not the minute, I got recognizing of it when my mom was dying, but it kept growing. So now when I'm in the moment, like I don't worry about getting an A or, you know, having the best dinner, whatever, having the big house, that doesn't matter. What matters is that I'm actually in the moment, actually feeling life. Like
Hmm.
it's a emotional, physical thing for me. It feels like a vibration that I'm living in the hum of life. And I wasn't doing that before. I was writing, right, either backing off it or running in it. It's
It's
affected
like
my
making
voice.
music faster than you can listen to them and enjoy them kind of
Exactly. And
thing,
it's like
right?
kind of
Yeah.
fake music because we're not really in the pocket. And I
Yeah.
will say just one more thing about this because it is key that when I talked about my nose being severed, I
That's
had my nose reattached. Then I had another surgery at 30 so that they can shape it because as a little girl they didn't. So I had another surgery. And then everything at some point a couple of years ago, 2 or 3 years ago, kind of collapsed. And
yeah.
I went to a nose surgeon in San
You mean
Francisco,
your nose collapse? The from the
the
previous
inside,
surgery?
like the cartilage, so that it was hard
Oh
for me to
wow, okay.
breathe. I think it was always hard for me to breathe, but I didn't.
Do you get headaches, like sign
Oh,
of
I
pressure?
just, well, basically what I found out. So he ended up having to rebuild my nose using I have a rib cadaver, a
Oh
rib
wow,
from a
okay.
cadaver. So, but when my nose was unpacked, they unpacked it, and I was sitting in his chair, and it was the biggest whoosh of air going up my that I had never ever experienced, and I had
Yeah.
a complete panic attack. Like that. What's that? And he goes,
Wow.
that's breathing. And I got used to it. And what I realized that's probably the first time really in my adult life, I mean, from 2.5 when the accident occurred, that I wasn't even rushing ahead of my breath. Like I learned,
To stay
oh,
with your breath.
actually, that's what they say in meditation. Stay with our breath. Well, I really didn't know what that was because I was always kind of going without realizing it. And what a miracle. Like that, talk about like, I don't want to say there's a final piece, but that getting my breath back really also contributed to be staying really present in the moment, which I wasn't able to do before. I had no awareness of that
Hmm.
until I got my nose so that air would go up.
So
Yeah.
in that physical sense, it made you grounded to yourself, right? Because you have
Oh,
to
yeah.
make that connection,
Yeah.
right? So wow,
Yeah. With the
that's a
vibration even more. Like I used to
yeah.
not be able to sing. I'm like going to be in a singing thing with some woman, and I'm totally in the pocket of vibration. I couldn't do that before because breath is part of that pocket. So amazing. It's such a miracle.
Is
You
there a
know.
way to hear you sing? So
Um,
that we can observe.
oh, well,
Maybe
yeah,
we
I
can talk
can't.
about that at the
It'd be hard.
end.
Let's see. That's a really good one. Okay,
Yeah.
this is one of my songs. Um, my deepest kept secret, my deepest kept secret, my tender yearning heart, my tender yearning heart, defended with courage, burning in the fire, underneath the fury, covered up with ashes. My deepest kept secret, my deepest kept secret, my tender yearning heart, my tender yearning heart. Pulsing with desire, alive with feeling, vibrating with love, surrendering to grace. I finally hear your song. I finally hear your song. That's the song.
That was very beautiful. And did you write those lyrics yourself? Because
I
they're very
did.
powerful. Yes,
I did. I wrote the lyrics and then um,
love
a
it.
musician put them to guitar, and that's one
Yeah.
of the songs I'll be singing in a concert in a few weeks. So the fact that I
You
birthed the
basically you
song,
couldn't sing at all before. Like,
no, not at all, because I
not at
wasn't
all.
listening to the vibration, and that's the part that's been growing. And I actually was yesterday at a practice. We had a rehearsal, this group,
Yeah.
amazing group of women, and it was like the first time I felt myself like it's a journey completely in the vibrations of all the women's song, of the music playing. And we were like a group of women that was in the pocket with each other because we've heard each other's songs. It
Hmm.
was a vibrating feel that was so, talk about healing. Oh,
Yeah. I can
yeah.
feel, I mean, we're obviously on Zoom, this live talk, in this digital world, but I felt your emotions, okay, and your lyrics were powerful, and through your voice, I felt your confidence. I felt that your sense of surety about yourself. I felt you knowing your identity. I felt this woman knows who she is, and
Yeah.
coming from this many decades of quietly feeling loss, inside, right? So going back to what we were sharing about just kind of in autopilot mode, right? Whether it was housework or
Yeah.
relationship,
Yeah.
intimacy or
Yep.
having children and growing up in all those different eras and just navigating with like, yeah, we just have to get the laundry done, right? This is how it is for a relationship, right?
Yeah.
This is the time for, having sex, and these are the right age and we should have children, and this is what it
Totally.
happens.
That sounds like me right there. Not anymore.
Yeah. So that brings us to, I want to share that, recent global data from Gallup shows that over a third of people experience daily stress and worry. Okay, it's very, very common. Yet many of us continue to push forward without a pause. So, you know, touching on once again that powerful moment at 51, I want to know what was the precise moment that you decided, hey, I'm going to write a book. I'm going to publish this. I want to share it with
I
everybody.
I always loved to write, but I didn't want to write anything personal because I don't want somebody to read my diary. I used to, when I left high tech and had a nonprofit, I also did events in my home where I invited musicians in, and it was amazing. I love gathering women. Well, this woman did writing circles.
Oh,
She came into my home, and I had never been in one before, but in this circle, 20 minutes. Don't pick up your pen. Just let it rip. Whatever you want. If you need some topic, here's some over here. And then if you want to, you can read what you wrote out loud, and no one's allowed to critique it. They're only allowed to say, "Oh, when you said that, I feel this." I wrote like no tomorrow. And what I
wow.
wrote was all about being a worker at McDonald's for $1.90 an hour and being really speedy. I was like 16. When I read it out loud, when I read, well, oh my gosh, I felt like I was in McDonald's. Oh, yeah, 16. That's how I felt at 16. So I realized that my memory and the way I worded things so I just started doing that about different stories. And people were like, oh, can you read me another chapter? This was as time went on. This was a good 15 years ago when I started, not thinking I'd ever publish. But I realized that because of my photographic memory,
Mhm.
and because I had been on this journey of not being in my heart to being on my heart, that I decided to write about it as just an experiment for myself. And that led to women saying, no, like we want to read it. Can you give me a rough draft? So that's what it's been like. And that has given me even more, oh my gosh, I thought I'd be shamed, but I haven't been.
You made me remember something that I totally forgot. I Prior to me starting Her Stories Untold and Her Journey Power, I was like in this phase where I wanted to do something, but I wasn't sure. So I did join this like women's writing circle, and it was very interesting. It was like very different women from all walks of life. We kind of shared about, our personal profile kind of thing, but we didn't really. And then the teacher, she was of course a woman, and she was very gentle. She just said, "Write." And I don't remember any specific things that I wrote, um, but I do recall one thing. That was the moment I was like, "What? I need to do something. I want to do something more," because this made me start to think. Like I don't. Not that those stories weren't interesting or anything, but I was like, I need to know more stories, right? Kind of thing. It's just, I
Yeah.
need to know more than this room, that we meet and write together, kind of thing. So that's yeah, and I think that's a very powerful, pivotal moment, that changes uh, everything. And I kind of want to go back to this point earlier where you're talking about being present, right? That, you writing about McDonald's experience, you were so present in that moment, even though you at the age of 16, a lot
Yeah.
of things were going on kind of thing. But the fact that you so vividly and clearly wrote that, it's like kind of like what you talked about, listening to music and actually enjoying that experience, being present is like I just want to explain that feeling. It's like watching a movie. Not every single movie that you watch, you're going to be really connected and really into the movie. But for the
Yeah.
movies that you do watch and you're really present and really connected, you seem to forget everything else, okay? Because you're totally immersed in that narrative, in that story.
Yeah.
And that, if people ever get confused what it means to be present, that's the exact feeling, okay? You forget everything else. Okay. That's what it is in the moment. Yeah.
And
So I just thought that was a
Trey, I just
beautiful.
want to
Yeah.
say, you, thank you. Sorry I interrupt because there's always a little
It's
delay
okay. It's
that's hard,
okay.
but you
Yeah.
are such an intuitive, emotive interviewer. Like I've done other podcasts and I don't think I've
Thank you.
sung on another one, but I feel that you really um, have a way of interviewing to get to even to really deep level. So that's you're one of your, I think, a superpower. You're in the right shot for what you're doing.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing girls lifting girls up kind of thing, empowering.
Yeah.
But I felt connected to you. I didn't mean to pressure, but I thought you were gonna share a link maybe. That's what I was like hoping because I wanted to feel that power, that moment kind of thing. Because I know it's easier said, and hear some talk, some interviews saying some I can sing before, but now I can sing, and this is what it is kind of thing. But like you have to be in the moment and feel those words that you wrote, right? And then to have the
Yeah.
courage to sing, right? That's a beautiful thing. And singing scientifically proven that it boosts your mood, your confidence, and everything,
Yeah.
and your mood is much happier and much lighter. Why not, right? So, and I think that's more powerful than clicking on the link. So thank you. I really greatly appreciate for singing
Thank
live
you.
with us. Yeah, because I felt you and I told you exactly what I felt. I felt you very empowered in your voice. So that's what it
Thank
is.
you
And
so much. It's
yeah,
taken a lot. It's taken nearly 68 years, but it's worth every second to get there. Yeah.
exactly. And it's never too late. So that moment starts now for everybody else that is listening and watching us. Um, I want to talk about something that women tend to shy away from. Okay. There's a lot of things on
Yeah.
TV. We read novels, we read 50 Shades of Grey, we watch all these soaps, kind of thing. But it's intimacy. Okay.
Yeah.
Um, Research in psychology consistently shows that early emotional experiences shape adult attachment, intimacy, and ability to feel safe in relationships. Okay. I know while reading your book, it touches on relationships. Like and I wanted to ask you, how did your early experiences shape your ability to experience intimacy and connection as a woman later in life? Because I think yeah, I think that has a tremendous impact, the type of partners, right? Maybe marriages,
Yeah.
whether possibly a woman decides to have children or not, kind of thing, and how that next generation also pans out in their relationships. Yeah.
Yeah. I, that's a really complicated question, but um, I, I think I was very, very insecure. And
Hmm.
so I look, that my mom had shamed me so much for my looks that I really kind of ignored my looks and went by, oh, how does it feel when when a man touches me? Oh, that feels good. And kind of was chasing that really good feeling because maybe I wasn't as present as I thought, but I was chasing the adrenaline high of, going to the prom and I feel that um I the relationships were okay, but I think I was most of me was missing in the relationship and I didn't realize it. So it caused me to maybe either make a bad choice or just, the relationship falling flat, maybe because of who I was being. And that's hard to admit, but you know, I don't do that anymore. I feel like I love men, I love women, I love my grandkids, I love animals, I love people. I feel like what's most important now is being authentic. And I'm
Hmm.
not, because I'm older, I'm not driven by the whole the pulse thing that we chased when we were much younger. At least I did. I feel that my relationships everywhere, not just with men, are more authentic because I'm more real, not because the people are more authentic, that I feel like I'm more in my body and I want to hear somebody's story. Oh, I really love that hug, whether it's a hug from my grandson or a hug from a partner, that I'm much more available than I was before.
That's so very true. And I think I'm just thinking back, growing up as a teenager kind of thing, right? I think consistently it's going back to that disconnection. So that
Yeah.
disconnection with yourself it doesn't just suddenly start as an adult. It doesn't begin or you have that problem or it's a situation because you're a woman or a man or anybody basically. For example, 57% of the US teens report feeling persistently sad or hopeless. Okay. And this is from the Center of Disease Control and Prevention. And why this matters is because early on there's emotional distress and it sets the foundation for, I guess, the adult attachment patterns, right? And what's really a big deal right now is, people feeling a sense of loneliness. I think young women also feel that and it hits hard. I think young women between the ages of 18 to 25 like report some of the highest level of loneliness globally, okay? And again, that is related to that disconnection, right? Everybody has a different walk, different childhood, different, growing up as a teenager, all these experiences are different. But I think what the stats are really showing is that it really impacts the difficulty, triggers that difficulty in forming deep intimacy with men in
Yes.
relationship, right? So I think that's the thing, and that also is interconnected with sexual satisfaction gap, right? So there's an intimacy reality, and then there's an intimacy non-reality kind of thing, right? So but yeah, so I think there's been like even to us talking about this, like I feel like it's almost kind of a little bit awkward because women like we can talk about this. We see movies, people talking about this. We see men talking about it, and it's fine. But when it comes to talking about it, it's not so easy. It's just a whole different ball game of information, but situation. But it's about these unmet needs, right? There's an imbalance in intimacy that is not expressed, right? Again, they're invisible, right? So to speak. And
Yeah.
I think really like without this emotional safety, right? I think intimacy can suffer, right? And so it's not really just about the sex. It isn't just about the intimacy, but it's all areas of one's life, I think. Yeah.
And it just manifests in different ways. It's not about let's get some better makeup and do this and that. It's really is that an inside job to
Yep.
to do the work to be your whole self. And we're not perfect and we're going to make mistakes. But in general, I look at where I was at 51 compared to where I am now, and it's been a journey. Oh my gosh, priceless, even though, I can't remember all the stuff. It hurts more to walk. I have osteoporosis now. You know, that's not fun, but I still would rather take what's going on inside.
Hmm.
Um, than
Yeah.
what's happening externally. It's priceless when you and it's not doesn't necessarily happen overnight, but it is feel really good when you get there because I feel like when you have authentic connections, really
Yeah.
authentic, no matter where you are, that's like what feeds us. It's beautiful. I mean, it could be an authentic connection with the tree instead of just walking by the tree.
Yeah.
So
You
I
became
feel like
aware.
that's where life, that's the pocket we should all be in, is being in the moment with what's in front of us, doing our best to dance with it, talk, communicate with it or not, or maybe we're going to go to sleep, but to really feel, I call it a vibration because instead of just running by something, like
Yeah.
running so quickly you don't feel the moment at all. And that would have been me. That's why I'm so talking about vibration all the time because it really does feel like a physical thing when I'm aware that I'm in the moment. It's vibratory for me.
Yeah, it's a sense of like previously you were living life very intensely, And
Yeah.
so in one way, it's like we cannot relax. And once again, it goes back to being present in the moment because, and as I described earlier about watching that movie, staying with the music that you love, kind of thing, that's exactly it. Even though there are different things and situations, but I find it similar to intimacy in a relationship, right? Once both can really relax without abandon kind of thing, that's when this awareness, beautiful awareness and relaxation comes in, right? So, and yeah,
Yeah.
talking about
Oh,
that, I
yeah.
want, yeah, please continue.
Oh, I was just going to say, you remind me, you're such a good interviewer, being in the moment.
Sorry.
Something that I'll never forget around my nose surgery.
Yeah,
I was like probably passed out in the car. I don't really remember the car ride, but I do remember that when I was lying down and realized there was somebody in front of me and was the doctor,
yeah.
he looked at me and introduced himself. He was the first person to look at me like, "Hi, I'm Doctor da da da." And I always thought, wow, it's amazing that at age 2.5, I remember his face and I still remember his name. And when I went to get this nose surgery, and I talked to one of the top surgeons in San Francisco. And when I walked into his office, what I noticed first was his presence. I didn't have a word for it back then. And he was talking, he goes, by the way, you said you were born in San Francisco. Do you remember the name of the guy that did your surgery? And I said, yeah, I told him the name. I remember the name from 2.5. And he goes, that's who trained me. He said that when people have accidents on their face, most of the time people don't look at them. You are to look at them like they're the most precious being, no matter if their nose is off or if their face is. And because I caught, he had that presence about it, and he's the one that did my surgery. It
Mhm.
was the one that I said, "Oh God, what's that?" He goes, "That's air." He was really present and really amazing, and I felt really, really safe. And that doctor from 2.5, that imprinted me. Really, that's when you're talking about presence. He taught his surgeons to have presence, not just 'cause when you're doing the surgery, you need to get the stitches right. It's that you need to look at the person in the eyes and let them know that they've got you. You're going to be okay. It was
Basically,
so you're talking about presence. I've never really shared this story that just came out of me because it
yeah.
was so powerful to have that. bookends of surgery at 66, surgery at two, 2.5,
Hmm.
doctor training the other doctor, and they both know how important it is to look at somebody's face. You know, that's presence. It's not just, here's my hair. It's like, oh, I see you. You're going to be okay.
It's very true. And what you're describing to me feels like they hugged you.
Yeah.
They held you, you know?
Yeah.
Not that they were
Yeah.
holding your hands during, the surgery, of course, but
No.
and I almost feel like maybe that's what your mom did too. She embraced you. She
Yeah.
hugged you with her
Yeah.
eyes, you know?
Exactly.
And
She
I think
didn't do
that's
that.
beautiful.
She wasn't available really for that when we were growing
Yeah.
up, but on her deathbed, intubated, she was definitely 100% there for
Yeah,
sure.
she hugged you.
Yeah,
And
she
I think
did.
those rare moments are very precious to us.
Yeah,
Now reflecting back, in time, of course. And I just want to go back to touch on that intimacy because that's where this kind of all stems from,
yeah,
right? And I think this is really important to discuss because it's about relationship normalization, right? I know,
yeah,
like, around the whole entire globe, there's this sense of awareness around mental health, right? And but I find that I've been reading, and it seems that many women continue to normalize emotional disconnection in relationships without questioning it. And this isn't just about romantic relationships, but it could
yeah,
be, with your boss, with your colleagues, with your friends, and stuff like that, even with themselves, right? So I guess, Lena, I want to ask you, was there a moment when you recognized that you had accepted in relationships, and it wasn't truly fulfilling or aligned with what you needed, and it can range from whether it's at work or your boyfriends, husband, children, so to speak, whatever. Yeah, want to
yeah.
share.
I think um, from a very early, like I still have groups of friends that I were really close to in grammar school, junior high, high school, college, this job, that job. So I do feel that my relationships with women, like
Hmm.
women being talking, were more authentic really than my relationships with men because I was maybe trying to perform or look cute or whatever. And I feel that those women, the mature women groups that I have now, based
Yeah.
on old friendships, I have pockets of them, and it's amazing. We may not talk every day, but it feels like what the quality those women have is presence. I mean, we may have all been through divorces and things like that, but that we can get together and talk about somebody dying, and we didn't have those same tools maybe in high school, but the presence and caring of the woman. So I feel really lucky that I have been blessed with amazing women friends. With men friends too, I worked in a career like the 30 years I was at this company, I was like all men. And maybe I saw six other women in my
Wow.
field at the time.
Yeah.
I did okay with men, but it wasn't the same. And then, of course, I had romantic relationships, when I was married and boyfriends. And that was different because there was sensual energy, but the actual communing, like you sit in a circle with women, sometimes you can do it with a man, but I feel like in general, I don't know, women are better at it, at
Y-
a
I
little
guess
bit. I don't
woman.
know.
And that comes from, us coming from a period of being disconnected from our own bodies as a sense of self. And it was a commonly normalized experience. And then coming to this stage where you're really connected with yourself and possibly all your friends have evolved and changed and
Yes.
got connected
Yeah.
with their themselves too, so that you can have
Yeah.
this um, I guess openness, a sense
Yeah.
of experience sharing together, right? Kind of thing, right? And I think that's really interesting. And I guess my curiosity is what actually defines as a good relationship with men? And I asked this question because woman's a woman, right? And because I'm writing a book on marriage and relationship, and I'm just gathering information data because I'm trying to stay with this very curious mindset kind of thing. Like, and I think the definition of what is a really good relationship is it varies, right? Kind of thing. But I guess what is meaningful to you now?
I think it's funny. Um,
Yeah.
Now I'm really appreciating um, like a man that has lived long enough and have been in relationships that is really present and knows how to provide what's needed there. In the past, I was like, oh, I could do that. That was my MO before. And now it's like, oh, wow, that's really good advice. Thank you. I'm now for the first time in my life like appreciating a man that is really caring and is actually deeply listening, listening and giving advice, but in a way that feels like it's helpful. Oh, you're caring for me. Thank you. I never thought I'd say that, but I really think it was important for me to learn how to receive that from a man, to
I think
trust
that
enough.
I think that's really important that what you just mentioned, the receiving part. Because I feel like I think it's possibly a stereotype or the role woman. And I just think that we're always in this in the back of our minds. We need to perform, we need to
Yeah,
support, and we need
yeah,
to be there, but we're really tired, right? And then finally getting really comfortable with our sense of body and
yeah,
sense of self that we're able to say no and appreciate them being that way, exactly like listening, right? Being kind and stuff like that, being there for you, so to speak. And I want to connect on the point about you talking about the relationship with your girlfriends kind of thing. Like it was really interesting because today I was driving on the street and while I was passing a corner, there was this woman and she was just kind of handsome and cool in her own way. She's a older woman and beautiful, and she's wearing these cool glasses, which I was admiring, and I have my cool glasses too as well. Right? So I saw us being comfortable and connected with our own bodies or sense of self. Okay, I'm not talking about like glamorous, like super wet, but she was trendy on, as herself, standing there smoking. Okay. And she's got these cool, those barrel pants and stuff like that, little booties, right? This long cardigan that was like a shade of moss green kind of thing. And we kind of not in a sexual way, but in respect, woman to woman, like we checked each other out, right? Without saying anything. I almost felt like, I propelled to just open the window and be like, hey, nice to meet you. When it was great, right? So, and I felt like if I had met her at a party or some event, we would chat like
yeah,
intensely because
yeah,
she seemed like she had a cool life kind of thing. Then talking to you here, connecting because I'm thinking back when I was a teenager, I don't know if I could do that. I don't know if I'm connected to myself and know myself well enough and feel confident enough to say, hey, how's it going? Cool glasses, right? Wouldn't
yeah.
wear them, suits you perfectly, but I know my glasses looks good on me, but that's cool. And I know you like them, but you wouldn't wear them either, right? Kind of thing. So I think that's I don't know, I just want to
Yeah,
mention it's a powerful moment, yeah.
it is. It's like the surgeon moment where what's really
Yes.
important is making an authentic connection. You're going to be okay. Like not like, oh my God, your nose is falling off and you're bleeding out, you know. He looked at me like I was the most precious being in the world that he was going to help.
Yeah.
I still have visceral the memory of that. Two and a half
It
is
it was
visceral.
very,
And I
just a
think people
brief
can have
moment,
that
but
impact
super
when they have
powerful.
that presence. Yeah.
I think
Wow.
that's
Well, you know how to, thank you so much. Jeez. Any other questions?
yeah, I've got just a couple more. We're kind of wrapping up soon. But it's just really, I'm just having a great conversation with you, right? In our
Yeah, me
live
too. I'm
talk.
having fun.
Yeah. So since sharing your story, how has your life changed, both internally and how you relate to others? Like, because what it
Uh,
is, I want to touch on the writing portion because there's a growing recognition that storytelling can be a powerful tool for healing, not just individually, but collectively. Because you were talking about healing other people, right? So,
Totally. Like I've had some, my house isn't that big, but like maybe 10 or 12 at a time, I've hosted some women here where I've read a story out loud, my cha a few chapters out loud, and they're just beautiful circles of everybody starts sharing. It's so healing. Um, I was at a women's retreat,
Hmm.
and this was a while back, and I hadn't read my story out loud. In fact, I hadn't told anybody I published it. And somebody asked me, we were sitting at a breakfast table, there was like maybe 8 or 10 to read a chapter out loud, and I did, and two women started crying. And then someone said, "Could you read another chapter?" And then another two women started crying. I felt the palpable me too. Oh my gosh, what you opened up in me. So um reading the story out loud was a really important step. It made me brave enough to go, oh, people are just saying that it's a good, a good book. Shattering the Mirror is good to be nice, but it's having an impact that was the opposite of shame.
Hmm.
It was feeling supportive. I'm not alone in my journey because the story may not be the same, but it's the same themes, shame
Yeah.
and abuse, whatever is there. Every woman has some version of a story of that, and just sit around a breakfast table with a group of women like that made me much braver. And I feel
Mhm.
like I'm just getting more and more brave with being
With
able
it.
to have humor, be funny, and actually be supportive of women instead of maybe jealous of them and saying, "Oh, I wish I looked
Yes.
that." Now it's just like, "Oh, babe, that's hot." Just different. We don't have to be
Yeah.
competing.
That's exactly it. And that's what I was sharing earlier, right? She was cool and she
Yeah.
thought I was cool and we
Yeah.
admired each other from afar without naming and it was fine. Like I don't have to be like you don't have to be, but we're cool in our own existence. Now,
Yeah.
you know, continue on, like, across the world, millions of women are navigating unseen emotional experiences that really get named or validated. As you observed, when you were sharing your book, reading chapter to chapter and seeing the actual reactions, the crying, and
Right.
asking you to continue to read, right? So for women and girls who may see parts of themselves in your story, um, what message would you want to share with them? Like now?
Um, it's never too late to to face your story, claim your story, and tell your story, and to be available to listen to somebody else's story and to share and come from a place of deep learning, deep love, deep caring, empathy, so that you're making a beautiful soup together of stories and learnings and wisdom. And, you know, I guess I'm talking about women here. Like I just imagine a woman on the hill, like sitting in a fire circle or stirring the
Yeah.
pot of
Yeah.
soup together. And some are adding potatoes and some are adding broccoli. Like, I, I think I love men, I love women, but I think when women gather,
Hmm.
it's not to hunt really. Women gather to stir the pot and just share their stories around a circle. And we've been doing that for eons. And so I would just say it's really important to stay connected to yourself first and to your story and healing, but to not do it alone. I mean, our stories we can maybe write alone, but really the experiencing, don't just write a song, be brave enough to sing it and share it.
Yeah.
Don't just
That's
write a
a
story, be brave enough to put it out there and share it, because I know with every story, there's going to be at least one person that goes, oh, and has that aha moment. That's,
Yeah, I had a
it's not
lot of
about, for
aha
me, it's not
moments.
about the money. It's about one woman at a time going, ah. It's just the circle's getting bigger. We're stirring the soup.
That's so very true. And I'm gonna go in a little bit more personal now.
Uh-oh.
If you could speak to your younger self, okay, the version of you who was still in survival mode, what would you say to her?
I would say, remember that really little girl that was so excited when her sister was born. You know, remember the pure joy of really being little. You still have those memories and embracing that innocent part of yourself that's like, I'm alive, chocolate, whatever it is. To embrace that. And as you get older, that little sparkly being is still there, even though you may have more wrinkles and more gray and your back hurts and your sexual hormones are different. To embrace that little girl that thinks everything is so fun and so cool. Like that's my granddaughter. Sh- She's 19 months and she's not saying no yet, but she's saying yes with a smile to everything and being silly. And me and her mom, my daughter, we're
Yeah.
taking her to Disneyland this weekend.
Oh, that is
I'm
amazing.
actually like, oh my God, I can't go on the rides because my back hurts, but she's
Yeah.
gonna just have a blast. I know that.
Oh, yeah, she's gonna have a I just actually
So
went to
embrace
Disneyland
that
2 weeks
little,
ago. It's
well,
crazy.
hope it's
It's
not too
crazy
crowded,
fun.
but
Yeah. No,
yeah,
it's you break out of your comfort mode. And I also
yeah,
want, you know, share that I loved what you shared just now, right? Enjoying that moment and just fully experiencing it because and I also want to remind everybody that you don't have to be a young girl or a little girl or, having to live decades to experience that. Just a couple of days ago, I had an experience, similar to what you were talking about, eating ice cream, vanilla ice cream. I don't even like
yeah.
vanilla ice cream, but for some reason that day I ate a vanilla ice cream and I was very pleased. I with each bite, each spoon, I was really savoring it. I don't know why, but it just tasted really good. And I was thinking about the ingredients, how long they took to make this ice cream, and how come I really liked it. But I was very pleased. And it was a very, very, very simple thing. It was just vanilla ice cream. I don't know
So
why, but
funny. I must
and
have picked up on that because I have
yeah.
never had this happen in a single podcast. As I
Oh, really?
literally, because I'm getting a little hungry, I was thinking, oh, I'll do my usual and get some avocado toast. But I'm like, no, I think I'm going to get ice cream.
Really?
Like I
Okay.
really have the thought when I start
Okay.
watching in San Francisco, I'm not going to have avocado toast. I'm going to
Okay.
have ice
Please
cream.
have your ice cream because I'm going to be eating ice cream with you from another location. So
Yeah,
we'll be eating
exactly.
ice cream together in spirit and really, really enjoy that.
Yeah.
I think it's quite beautiful. Now, coming to near the end of our talk, I want to ask you, beyond the book, are there any projects or causes that they're currently working on that you like to share, invite people to support?
I like to think that I'm not working anymore, like that I'm not doing, but I love supporting project. When a woman comes up and says they're working on a project and you know, I support it in some way, either with enthusiasm or sometimes making a donation. I love doing that. I don't actually want to build the house and like physically do the nails or do the equations and math. I love support sprinkling. I like to be a little sprinkler of joy and
Yeah.
yeah, I love being generous.
And no, I think it's beautiful, and thank you very much for your support. And I think that's the most amazing thing that we can do, that we all wake up each
Yeah.
day and sprinkle something,
Yeah.
everywhere. And
Sprinkle blessings.
yes, sprinkle blessings. And I think one does not realize how impactful it can be, because like I said, and exactly what this whole talk was about, a lot of the things that people experience are invisible, right? It's not visible to the eyes. Naked, and the fact that that is the situation, your little sprinkles, of care really does
Yeah.
go to the next level,
Yeah.
It's super
Yeah.
powerful. So I love
Yeah.
it, and I think we should continue to pass that energy all around, and people can,
Totally. I
yeah.
had such a good time. Thank you so
Yeah.
much. I'm going to get ice cream now.
Yes, you go get an ice cream. Now, before we go away, I also wanted to ask you, how do we get a copy of the book? If you can tell us.
Shattering the Mirror by Lena Fein is on
Yeah.
Amazon in Kindle
Okay.
format. It's in paperback and it's also an Audible. And it's
Okay.
also on Book Baby that distributes it to other like Barnes and Nobles, but you can easily get it on Amazon, but people have preferences. It's out there.
Perfect. So I will be sharing the links on our Facebook page after this. Now, before we close, I'm going to say something really uncomfortable, I guess. A lot of women are not living their lives. They're managing them, maintaining them, enduring them. They're doing everything right. And they still feel something is off, okay? And instead of questioning it, they adjust. They tolerate. They keep going because it looks fine from the outside. But deep down, okay, they know. They know they're disconnected. They know something is missing. They know this isn't fully them. And the hardest truth is this: the life you built to survive might be the very thing that is keeping you stuck. That's not easy to face because it means asking yourself questions like, why did I accept this? Why did I
Yeah.
stay? Why didn't I see it sooner? And most people don't want those answers. So they stay busy, they stay distracted, they stay comfortable. But once in a while, something breaks through, just like shattering the mirror. Okay. A moment, a loss, or a realization, and suddenly you can't ignore it anymore because that's not your life falling apart. That's your truth breaking through. And once you see it, you have a choice. You either go back to sleep or you wake up, transform.
Mm.
Not loudly, not perfectly, but honestly. So at Her Stories Untold, we don't just tell stories to inspire. We tell them because they reflect something back to you, something you may have been avoiding. So if something today made you uncomfortable, that is actually a very good thing because that discomfort, that's where your real life begins. So thank you very much, Lena. And thank you to
Thank you.
everybody that has joined us here today. Have your ice cream.
Thank you. Okay.
I will too.
Everybody have ice cream. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you very much. Bye bye. Hello, everyone, and thank you for being here today. My name is Teresa. I'm the founder of Her Stories Untold, a global initiative dedicated to amplifying the powerful, often unseen stories of women